Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Complexity Weekend closing ceremony. This is going to be a closing live stream. We're going to recap and review what happened this weekend, hear from a bunch of teams, just the tip of the iceberg for the teams that formed, and we'll be talking about how we move forward together. So, in 15 minutes, we'll begin the live stream. For now, we're going to hear 15 minutes of Michael Garfield music. So stick around, see you in 15 minutes. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the closing live stream. This is the beginning of the end of the September 2022 Complexity Weekend cohort. So, wow, slash, what a time. Carolina and Sean, greetings. How goes it, or where do you even want to begin?
I would love to hear Carolina's perspective as a first-time organizer.
Yeah, it's different. It's actually being an organizer, I think, keeps you in the space more, and I enjoyed it. I ended up, I think, catching more sessions than ever before, chatting to more people than ever before. There were so many interesting things happening. Like a huge shout out to the Ecoton session that I loved. There was so much fun brainstorming around ideas for what complexity weekend can become in the future. Just so much diversity and a lot of kind of like a rainforest in diversity of ideas bubbling around. It was really fun.
Thank you, Carolina. Sean?
It's always the best weekend of the year. There's two of them, which is so lucky to get two best weekends. It's just super fun. I love, honestly, this time what was really fun, and it happens every time, but I really focused on it this time, is when you've been in the space for, 5 hours, hour 6, hour 7, or whatever, and other people have been with you kind of on that journey, there gets to be this really interesting moment. For me, it was at like 1 or 2 a.m., but I don't know what time it was for anyone else. But it was just, we were all getting really deep and just really into things. And it was just really like refreshing and nice to kind of connect with everyone. Lots of people who are returning people and close friends now. People who are brand new, they're awesome. And it's just all of us, honestly, the best word is just vibing, right? It's just like, we love exploring all this. This is so exciting. Like, what are you going to bring up next? And those moments are always really magical, kind of at the heart and the center toward the end, of the weekend. You just get to that sweet spot. So that's one thing, at least, that came to mind.
Nice. Yeah, building on that, I agree. This weekend was the first time that we had such a clear one facilitated session at a time. So not splitting people across two and making a choice between facilitators, and then almost always followed by flexible time. And it feels like for all the sessions that I was joining for, that there was continuation of the discussion with or without the facilitator afterwards, and then for the next hour. And then the same people were there starting for the next one. And sometimes the facilitator would drop in and just be like, oh, there's a lot of shared context here. And so that's definitely one thing I take away, is that we're needing to have and share context with each other. And that can be really hard because, again, some people are waking up, some are going to sleep, and people are going to have different familiarities with any field, any term, any thinker or podcast that's mentioned. It's going to be like a partial shared truth, and just sharing a link is, it's not possible to do much more than just point at the context. But it's actually by just being in the space together and hearing some of the same discussions and participating across multiple intervals that we actually like start to have these reference points and callbacks. So like one example of that for me was with Seller's session on the balance between immediacy and long-term and how value plays into that. There was a lot of threads that opened in that discussion. And it was like, because it was one of the first sessions I went to, it felt like every other session, and even conversations that were happening when I was just walking around in real life, not in Gather, were being recontextualized by what happened in that presentation. And Seller brought primarily questions and experience, not an answer to this challenge of balancing immediacy. So just reflected on how like shared questions and time together can build context that allowed meaning to emerge. And that's how we build CW.
Yeah, I think this flexible time between sessions definitely really contributes to a more relaxed atmosphere. and to people being able to just carry on the discussions and take them in any directions. There's not that pressure to finish at the top of the hour. Oh my God, we have to rush. There's someone waiting. In the branding session, we just kept discussing. And I heard of a session that had more than an hour discussion almost when I was asleep. So I think it's great that it creates that openness in the space, and I think that helps to a very nice ambience that is very welcoming.
John?
I'm recalling another moment where it just kind of felt, and again, this was getting later in the night for me at least, but it just kind of felt like that scene in Willy Wonka where you're on the boat and then suddenly the lights are kind of changing and things aren't what they seem, and you're like, whoa. And I remember distinctly, I think it started during your live session, Daniel, when the video feed starts changing as you're showing people how to live record. And then suddenly it's like everyone brought their costumes and started doing snap filters, and then everyone is just starting to melt it, and then it carried on into like, I might not be recalling the order correctly, but I remember the questions focused session that Andrew and Sasha did, where we're talking to computers or trying to decide who's a human or not. And it just started descending into like, whoa, this is really interesting. Yeah, the surprise element is always one of my favorite parts at Complexity Weekend.
I agree. My facilitated session was on video recordings, and so we were building skill and hearing perspectives and bringing in complexity ideas. And then you're right, everyone started playing with their video, and it was like the fourth or the fifth or the sixth wall was breaking. It was like, what is happening here? So fun times. Thank you both. Let's look over to the Jamboard. We're on Jamboard slide 17, and we're just going to have some recap of really what happened before we look at some artifacts and then hear from some of the teams. So let's start with what we accomplished together. So Sean, why don't you give a first pass?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really cool things that we've accomplished together, including a lot of artifacts that I definitely want to go over. But at a high level, one of the most astounding things that kind of happens every weekend is just the sheer amount of content that gets shared. Many of it is not recorded, right? Our gather sessions that are interactive and live with lots of people kind of sharing things with each other and creating novel truth and just awesome complex system stuff. None of it really gets captured except in our hearts and, and documents and some artifacts that we share. So it's just a tremendous amount of really interesting content, just educational gold, really. And then, of course, there's the teams that come out, which we'll talk about, and the kind of applied learning that happens when you unpack complexity into these specific situations in a diverse team setting. And then the mentorship is always great. And I love how bidirectional the mentorship is. Anyone who kind of steps into that facilitator energy and helps another individual or team are often finding themselves being helped, and it being just this really interesting, more than the sum of the parts kind of experience. And then, maybe Daniel would be good to talk about the pre-weekend events. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we had a fun and pretty calm pre-weekend. We had a few different forms of events. So I'm going to go over to our participant single source of truth and hear those who checked in before the weekend. We always love onboarding people in the last moment, but we believe that, especially through deep time, the way to really make the most of the experience and connect with the cohort and start to find alignment and bring what you can bring to the cohort is through the pre-weekend events. You show up with more context. We had 6 kinds of pre-weekend events. We had Meet the Community, where we had some group discussions and some one-on-one discussions. We had facilitation training with Monica Kang, our associate at Innovators Box. And this was the first time this cohort that we had ever opened up the facilitation training to be for the whole cohort. And that, I think, as mentioned a little bit earlier, helped like decentralize the facilitation to being a practice and something we could all do for each other rather than being something that was a top-down force. It really emphasized that facilitation's a bottom-up force. We had tech office hours to make sure that people's audio and visuals were all right and that they understood how to use the features of the single source of truth and any other platforms that we used. We had some awesome discussions in Welcome to Complexity, where we had people coming from all familiarities and backgrounds coming together, talking about complexity, different ideas, starting with some ideas and domains, and then moving towards how it could be applied. And so it was great discussions. Those ones always feel like they're way longer than 1 hour in a good way because there's so much happening. Sean led some Purpose of Complexity weekend sessions in the pre-weekend that also reared their head during the weekend, so we can probably come to that later. And then we had some sessions with Jessica building a lot on team formation at Complexity Weekend, and the .teams committee will be sharing more later as a team itself soon. But these sessions were meant to check in with participants, see where they were at with respect to team formation, and then help them see the pathway to starting their own team, joining extant teams and committees, and we had a fun pre-weekend.
All right, we got to see the artifacts. Can you hop over to that?
I guess just one note, and I think it was just a few hours ago that Stephen was raising some of these points. We were talking about how teams are a unit where we can learn complexity by doing, but that's not the only scale of analysis. So even though we are going to be heading towards teams in this closing ceremony, many ideas were shared around how can we ask people questions like, how did Complexity Weekend experience enrich your life? How are you thinking differently and acting differently in different personal or professional settings? And using some sense-making approaches around that type of participatory inquiry, because there's just no numbers on what happens. And whether we think about the mapping, network weaving visualization that Carolina shared in the opening live stream, and the way that ideas are percolating across spaces that couldn't have happened except for this enabling event, or whether we think about that kind of just like ineffable value when we learn something, and not just a fact about the world, but something that's related to developing our perspective on our life/complexity journey. And so it's always funny because we always bemoan as organizers, like, we don't have metrics on who's in gather or how many people are doing this or that at this time. And it's almost like shining a flashlight into a cave or a dark city, maybe, because whatever we could measure is just like showing some quantitative gloss on something that would just, especially this cohort, felt just really high quality and inclusive, and really just like a developmental step for, I know, our community of practice, but also it just felt like other things were happening. So that's kind of what I felt being accomplished together beyond any specific like number value. But I think one way to look at that is through the artifacts, even though most of what happened was unrecorded in this same way. So let's do some image meme review, shall we? So, Sean, our chief image meme interpretant. Okay, I'll read the caption and you can provide the interpretation. The top panel says people waking up at 6 a.m. The bottom panel says people going to bed at 6 a.m.
Yes, I think this is just caught my eye as like a fun moment or idea in a global community practice like Complexity Weekend, where you literally have stuff going on 24/7 during the weekend, and you have to sleep at some point. And it's just funny when you get these time zone mismatches where somebody's really just at the latest of their night. You know, they're okay, I'm finally ready for bed. It's like 3 a.m. I know Carolina had that situation quite a few times. And then people are just waking up like, what a beautiful morning. I got my cup of coffee. And just having that experience of just very different, architectures of mind, you know, depending on your particular time zone or day. and having that mixed into the diversity of interaction is one very fun aspect of complexity.
Nice. Caroline, of course, just give any thoughts or I'll move to the next image beams. All right.
I also think that that contributes to kind of to keeping the atmosphere alive, because you don't have the whole cohort tuckered out at the same time. There's always different energies to balance each other out, and I think that also keeps things nice in a way. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Next image meme. I believe we could say it's a person with a hose spraying them with water that they're holding of their own volition. They showed up for that session. Top says 10 minutes into Complexity Weekend session. Bottom says Markov blankets. I guess I'll take the first interpretant pass here. This was perhaps generated along with many other incredible image memes during Matthew's session. And Matthew's session was entitled The Emergent Metabolism of Soil. And right off the bat, it went into the Markov blanket formalism, which some of us know and love. Others may know and love it eventually, but it's a statistical idea related to Bayesian graphs, Bayesian statistics, that has perhaps like few other or no other ideas really catalyzed some amazing discussions around everything from map territory to the accessibility of formalisms in scientific ecosystems more broadly, to what does it mean to carve nature at the joints? Are we carving the map at the joints, like where we just creased it? Or are we carving the territory at the joint in the way that somebody would talk about different kinds of things? And Brian was in that discussion, and the chat was so active with different philosophy details and beginners asking questions, and there was all of that being facilitated by Matthew, bringing a lot of skill and expertise and connecting it back to the soil metabolism and the kind of work that he's involved in. And so it just was funny, and it summarized like a lot of the threads that we bring together when we're working together.
Also, I want to credit Squasha for the creation of this meme by request, and instantly. It was very quick. I'm very impressed.
Yep. She's quick on the meme draw. All right. Let's look at this one. So it is a triangle, and on the left side it says CWE. On the 3 points it says generative storytelling, dialogue, challenge engagement, and listening for confirmation. So what was happening here in whose session?
So this was Josh's session. So if you go back to the program and just briefly show that row, this was an artifact, and in fact one of the projects brought up to be demoed or figured out in this particular framework. And that happens a lot at Complexity Weekend, where Complexity Weekend itself is a system of study. So one of our core values is that it is itself a complex system. Our community practice is a complex system. So it's always fun to apply the different tools and frameworks and kind of dog food it, so to say, to our own experiences this weekend. And I don't remember the exact name of the type of triplet or triangle it is, or triplet it is. But my rough understanding is that the bottom node is something that comes somewhat easily, or is kind of like a permaculture, flow, like of natural work that you can tap into and maybe start to tweak or modify in the way you'd like. And the top node is where you're hoping to get to, kind of infinite game, generative storytelling, infinite learning, infinite complexity journey type stuff. And then the node in the left is the way in which you might maybe go from the bottom to the top. And I forget the exact term used, but it was a really great informative session. And sometimes as an organizer, I wish I'm not doing too many things at the same time, so I could pay a little more attention. But this was a fantastic just artifact. I think it's just really cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, now we're going to go to a few more kinds of artifacts. And I just also think it's fun. Like, this is the tip of the iceberg. You would have screenshotted something different. You would have seen something different. You would have laughed at something different. And this is just like a few of us reminiscing over what just happened. But this is just a little bit of a flavor of what happens over the weekend. All right. Here we have Cat E. Kism. I'll take a first pass. So this was a facilitated session that was with myself and with RJ Corday. And we were describing and unpacking and interacting with a bunch of participants around this notion and idea and tool called a catechism, which you'd have to come to the session for the full story, but it comes from earlier operations orders for directing teams in a top-down way. More recently, RJ and I have worked on it in the context of bottom-up emergent team sense-making. And we've done this kind of session several times. Every time it's resulted in really generative dialogue and in a team forming, which we'll hear more about. And I just wanted to highlight that, especially through the contributions in synchronous and in chat of Michael and of Yana, there was a sensitivity around what does the way that we discuss and describe our team process, in what ways does that not just like kind of turn up or turn down the volume, but make different outcomes possible or impossible? So it was a very important discussion around, for example, the kinds of priors that people might have about what catechisms are and about new ways of framing that. So we were playing a lot with the term catechism and thinking of other ways to explore and describe, bringing in different knowledge traditions. And I guess here's a cat undergoing a schism or something like that.
I believe this might be our new mascot. It showed up in other jam boards across the weekend. Maybe it's our city cat that likes to go to all the different sessions.
Complexity
Yeah, it
cat.
did get mentioned. Yeah, it got mentioned in the next branding one. So that sounds like a good mascot to have.
That's funny.
Maybe instead of taking the dogs along with you, those you have in Gather, you could get a custom one where you take this cat along with you. We get a little avatar.
Nice. And then I'll just expand these two sort of, now we're in the Jamboardception phase.
Oh, yes, plenty of jam boards to be attributed to Complexity Weekend. That's got to be a normal stat we have on the other slide. How many jam boards came out of it?
I'll make the first one. This is from the
Sure.
rebranding of CW September 2022 session. And this is a slide that is about co-imagining the Complexity Weekend space. I'll just leave this one up because it's bigger, and then Sean, go for it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just speaking to the other one real quick, Michaela led a really great session on an ongoing rebranding for Complexity Weekend that we're working on with the community and with the outreach committee. And, you know, so if you want to get involved in that and couldn't make it to that session, just email complexityweekend@gmail.com. The process is really just getting into full gear. And, you know, just that one was 6 slides full of Post-its like that, right? So it's a ton of great data that the community always provides when we expose them to any Jamboard, basically. And then the other image is one, definitely blow it up, because this was from a session around, and I would call it kind of under the placemaking. Oh, there's catechism. The placemaking committee, which is really working on the online sense of place for our, you know, metaverse of tools that we glue together to make a Complexity Weekend experience. And these were just some ideas, amazing ones, of how we might change, say, our gather space or the sets of tools that we, you know, glue together. And it was a lot of, again, city inspiration, which is a fun aspect of the rebrand that we're exploring. Yeah, Andy, maybe does everyone want to call out one that really excites them?
I'm going to call out the library, because this was just something that we were hearing a lot throughout. There was people really, even if they were joining for the first time, everyone was immediately aware of the richness of resources from all facilitators and even all participants that were joining, and everyone wanted for there to be a repository somewhere where you could just access anything. If you weren't able to join a session but you were really interested in the topic, you could still go and get it. And a library would be a way to do that. And there were different ideas around it, and even having a curator, someone like a librarian that would be around to help you. So yeah, this was something that I think came up here, and it was all a need that was very heard from participants this time.
Awesome. I think the takeaway from looking at this for the second time and raised it then too, was what we don't see here is complexity. And we then talked about how this is like a space that can be evolving a songline for the 21st century venturer, or it can be home. There's family and kids and friends. There's different professions. There's an emphasis on interactivity and accessibility. It's like, are we talking about Complexity Weekend, online community of practice, or are we talking about local environments that we want to be able to modify and scaffold? So that was like a really deep and powerful point. So that is, yeah, go ahead, Sean.
I'm just going to pick one real quick. And I think in the upper left, accessible hub with portals into many worlds to explore together. I think this is, especially in the context of placemaking and gather development specifically for the Complexity Weekend community, I just think it's this really promising and exciting vision like of a metaverse where basically facilitators at Complexity Weekend can open a portal to any world for you during their live session. And you know, the rules of physics, you know, the laws of physics in that world could be different, and they could be illustrative. They could be a type of interaction, you know, rule system that is meant to explore different ways of relating or ways complexity might be embodied in different systems. And so I'm excited for the idea in the future for facilitators to not only get comfortable with our kind of default Gather.town live session space and get more comfortable and use it in the different aspects in different ways over time, but also to get comfortable creating their own worlds and allowing people to portal to them and back, you know, during the Complexity Weekend experience. So that to me is really exciting. And if you're interested in any of these ideas of how to build, you know, kind of a complexity city in the sky, like a metaverse laden, you know, platform or home for us online or our global community practice, then definitely email complexityweekend@gmail.com and just inquire about the placemaking committee and how to join our public team that works on that.
Great. Well, great first beginning. What fun. Let's head into the next part of the closing live stream ceremony, which is going to be about teams. And we're going to spend a good amount of time here hearing from some teams in different ways. And then we're going to talk about what happens after CW. So for those who are listening, there'll be a slight lag of a few seconds. But if you're listening and you want to come on this live stream and present live, and you're ready to talk for up to around 5 or slightly more minutes, and you want to share about your experience, and you want to talk about your team, and you want to bring visibility to something that you're working on or surface something that was really important for you, if you're listening to this live stream and you have access to the gather space that we are in right now, you are welcome to join, and our bouncer, Squasha, will welcome you in. So, again,
Daniel, why don't you minimize the presentation potentially and even just kind of briefly show the architecture? Are you comfortable with that? What do you think?
Oh, sure. Yes. We're in the recording studio. So, there we are. And here's Bouncer Squasha. Hello, Sasha. And people can come up, and we'll first prioritize the people who want to join and present live because maybe it's late or they're not available later. And we'll have a few teams that have recorded videos already. And hey, Sasha, you can welcome anyone who is ready to present live to join. So yeah, we'll prioritize first the people who want to join and present live. And then we'll do some teams with recorded videos as well as with just the request that we read their description out loud. So every team will be heard from. And even if you didn't fill out a team seed form, just come on up and we'll hear from you. So it's all good. Let's welcome Shirley up first. How's that? Thank you.
That sounds good. And I've just listed on the back end an ordering for the teams. So after we do placemaking right now, we can then move into maybe teams and then Homer and just kind of follow left to right. The post-its here?
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's fine. Welcome Streamer D as well. You're
and
on a
we'll
live
hear
stream.
from you.
You could mute
So,
the live
yeah.
stream, please.
I do.
Yeah, I'll just also note that if you are going to join the live stream, do make sure that you've muted YouTube, because otherwise there'll be a feedback, which is complex. Yes, Sean, I will be able to handle and make sure every team is heard from. So let's begin with Shirley talking about Team Homer. Is that okay, Shirley? And you can share your screen as well, and I will center it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought there was one going before me. So
Oh, we can do that.
We could do placemaking
Yeah.
first.
We
Oh,
can
okay.
Yes, go for it, Sean.
Sure. Yeah, so we kind of already talked about a little bit of some of the ideas for like a future vision for this placemaking committee, right? Or this internal CW team that's public facing and works on our sense of space online, our sense of place online, how we glue all the tools into kind of a unified metaverse where our CW ID is the key to kind of opening all these different areas to have experiences. And so really, I just wanted to highlight the work that's already been done by Shirley and Stephen and many others in our placemaking committee to create the gather space everyone's enjoyed this weekend with our cohort gather space. In fact, the latest version, which we've just iterated, and also the always online atrium where we have our monthly heartbeats and our public committee meetings. And just wanted to kind of take a little time now to explore that idea a little bit and maybe see if anyone out there is excited to learn how to develop specifically gather spaces, which is our main spatial video chat tool or synchronous connection tool. So I think it might be good. I know, Shirley, you maybe had a couple slides you wanted to share. Briefly, I guess I could just say like some initiatives that we're setting up. And so if you do end up joining the placemaking committee, we're starting the process of actually splitting into two subcommittees, right? It's all a complex system where organizational dynamics, is everything we're constantly managing. And we found that when we have the pressure of creating a gather space for monthly events and for biannual weekend events, that the time pressure would usually force us into a linear mode of thinking and just kind of an execution based, mode where we weren't really considering many different creative options. And so we're deciding to actually split into two subcommittees where one of them is the one in charge of executing and publishing spaces in time for the deadlines of the events, but then also another subcommittee to have no deadlines at all and be entirely creative and just build new worlds, try out this particular feature and gather and build a whole room or space around the feature to explore. And just out of that wild creativity, the other subcommittee can kind of take the output and configure it together for a deadline. So we're hoping that split in focus under these two subcommittees, might help just a little more creativity and a little less linear thinking and more lateral kind of exploration. So Shirley, I don't know if you want to share anything in the placemaking context, or we can take questions from Daniel.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
I guess it's a great direction. So again, anyone who wants to get involved with any committee, placemaking being one of them, and we'll hear from a few others as well, they can email complexityweekend@gmail.com. Oh, and we can welcome Stephen also to join. I will try to request Stephen to join. I have a feeling that Stephen will know a thing or two about joining a live stream with no context. So I actually eagerly await.
I think actually Stephen might have a gather experience to go over for still in the placemaking section.
Yes. All right. The bouncer has allowed movement.
Just so people.
Stephen, feel free to join. Just come up to the top, and then you'll be on the live stream. I mean, you are right now too. All right.
Nice. So just so people know who are watching, we're in Gather right now. You're seeing Daniel's little avatar. So this is all, we'll do it live. It's all fun energy.
Complexity. We'll do it live. Isn't that the meme? All right. If Stephen does not join, maybe Carolina bump up a square, or he'll navigate. Okay. Welcome, Stephen. So, hello.
Okay.
We're on the
Hello.
show. What would you like to add about placemaking? Or just share anything you'd like?
Yeah, well, placemaking is it's a big area, right? So you've got placemaking in the real world and placemaking in this world, and then so I'm interested in it myself actually because I was actually talking with the Canadian Healthy Communities Institute recently actually, and they're doing a lot of interesting stuff around it. People are interested in placemaking in the real in the sort of built world, right? And I think it's a good idea to think about. There's different practical ways that spaces might want to be used. Sometimes it's all about them being a bit different and maybe a bit experimental. And there's other times about them being functional and focused and sort of well understood or familiar, So I think there's been a kind of a move. So I hear what has been said. And I actually did a workshop recently with, and it inspired me to update a map that I created for Complexity Weekend on something called the Map of Meaningful Life, and that went well. I'm looking forward to actually being able to run another session with that now on Gather. I can even share that with you if you liked, but I don't know if that's going to be of interest. But it will show you the sort of a slightly different way of approaching. Should I do that quickly, or would that?
Yeah. I think just like a couple minutes.
Yeah, for 1 minute is good, just so that we can have 5 minutes per team. And placemaking was also a little bit before you joined, but share it for 1 minute, and then facilitate a session coming up. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the updated version of that space that was done in a workshop, maybe I think about a year ago now, quite a while ago. But before it was more the actual space that was based off the map that's used for the Map of Meaningful Life. And this one I've slightly adapted it to make it a bit more based on the experiences with some community members in Toronto, newcomers who were sort of exploring their community gardens on one of these maps, physically out in the park with fabric on the ground. But here, so there's so I think this is going to be interesting to explore the kind of the flow of meaningful pathways between, you can see here, the expressing full potential, where we're kind of secreting our ideas, to unity with others where we're absorbing them. So this is one of the ways where people can sort of, it feels just a bit more organic now in terms of where people are going to be standing and moving. So that's something that I'm looking forward to being able to test out a bit more.
Well, I love the embodied experience in Gather, and that being such an important part of being in our synchronous tool and space. Thanks for sharing.
Nice. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Stephen. That's it for Placemaking Committee. We are going to next have Shirley with Homer, and then Streamer D, if you want to just give a very short description of expressions of peace. But next, we'll go to Shirley with Homer.
Great. Thank you very much. Just going to share my screen.
All right. It's shared. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm actually sharing some information about a team that we formed at the November 2021 Complexity Weekend. So we seeded a team called Team Homer, which is an acronym, but the name itself probably gives you a hint. We are working on homelessness from a complexity standpoint. And so our acronym entails homelessness, observations, models, experience, and research. So what we're doing is we aim to, at this stage, use agent-based modeling, among other tools and complexity science concepts, as a tool to think with, that's ABM, and to explore and to collaborate together on one of the, I think, most complex challenges facing, in particular, urban areas. But homelessness, of course, affects communities around the world and in different types of communities. So that's our purpose. And so we've created or worked on 2 ABMs to date since we were seeded last year. And the latest model we have is called Homeless Encampment Search. So we've kind of started really with I think exploring how people who are homeless select locations to live unsheltered or temporarily live unsheltered. So we have our models are actually in NetLogo, which is very accessible. I'm not a programmer myself, and yeah, if I can do it, I think basically almost anyone can do it. But we've got our models, one model up at Modeling Commons, which is basically a repository for models in NetLogo that's very accessible. And you can just find it there. And also we have our GitHub repository where we have our code for our 2 models. And so, just a minute, I guess, talking about what we're trying to do is we're using basically, I think our approach is to add to, not replace obviously, but add to existing approaches to working on homelessness and to improve it in our communities. Meaning we're looking at modeling behavior of agents, and we're looking at how simple rules can be encoded to and iterated over time, agent behavior, to produce different aggregate outcomes. And so I think that what we've seen so far is, some of the models, this one that I'm just mentioning, homeless encampment search, was really looking at kind of simple search strategies for agents with limited sensing ability. So, a person in a big, huge city, but yet as it happens, we see people aggregating. How do they know where to go? They don't probably have a car or some limited mobility. So it's limited mobility, limited resources. And then we're in that model looking at kind of dispersion and, attraction and repulsion mechanisms. So anyway, it doesn't look very realistic. So I think that's one of the things that I'm finding out so far is that doesn't look realistic. So perhaps we look at, networks more closely, because there's information that is propagating through, I think, these systems. And another thing I'll just mention is thinking about, I think I mentioned this during one of the workshops, but when Matthew was talking about emergence in soil or soil emergent properties, I mentioned this amoeba. This is the same lecture, but it's an experiment about ball bearings in oil, and just showing like basic kind of self-organization and self-repair characteristics for this experiment. And so then I was thinking, and this is not what Matthew said, this is bringing in something else. Wow, when you think about encampments as self-organized systems to some extent, what happens when you perturb those systems, Actually, what we see is over time, they seem to kind of, again, aggregate. So despite perturbations by external, in this case, authorities. So that's just a few minutes about our project.
Thank you, Shirley. Thanks for the awesome work and for showing how to stick across cohorts and be in the game. So, next, again, we're going to be prioritizing anyone, whether they have a team seed form filled out or not, who wants to join live, and then we'll go to the teams that have a pre-recorded video or description. So next, for a few minutes, Streamer D, if you'd like to say anything, and then step off of the live stream area. But please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tolgay, and I'm originally from Turkey. Lived in northern Germany for 4 years, and then it's been some journey. But at the end, found some stuff, maybe something good that built itself and found itself quite naturally. And I discovered that didn't really, intended first place. It was all about giving every individual a capacity where they can find the most impact, the context. It started in different projects, but at the end, as of December last year, started a project called Demoverse, and then that created Expressions of Peace. And it was it started on a Miro board, and then now it's like a whole project. Seems like, yeah, I gotta restart this and stuff like that. But I would really appreciate if someone could that can open expressionsofpeace.org.
I can do it. Continue.
Yeah. No, I will not be able to show the second contract, which we included citizenship info as well. But the thing is, first it started with, hey, how can we create a reversed doctrine, like mutual assured destruction to mutual assured regeneration, and make it easy and empower states if they are in need for peacemaking, and sort of anti and not. It's starts with asking, hey, saying like, start a world peace and express yourself, and then asking this question, how would you imagine, express, and make a world peace, and create some focus around it, and if that's possible, making it at the end these to give a perspective and notion, and which ends with a product which is a world peace. And currently it's on blockchain, and it shouldn't really require technology in the first place, but it's all about inclusion of people. And then this is creating a peer-to-peer diplomacy paradigm, and I don't know if to call that paradigm though. So expressions of peace, and if you would go a little bit down, just this part, introducing just a bit above, here, expressions, and also next, acknowledgements of peace, gonna be the ways we experience peacemaking activities in a peer-to-peer fashion. So to use this human rights we define, hopefully gonna be 31st one on the existing ones, which is treating everybody equal, and it's about peace by equality, or peace through equality, rather than strength or all the others which we know. Then it will only generate armament races, and that's gonna sustain. So at the end, I want some process at the end being legitimized, and when it's recognized by a First Nation state in United Nations, then I will feel really good about it. And some might be from those without arms at the end, and so peaceful, and I'm so dedicated around that. It's an open source project, and at the end you can see how to contribute, but there are like, hey, what and why and how is really that's a wicked problem. But I think when we include people, it's gonna be something like accumulation of will and intentions and observability and undeniability, hopefully, and a challenge first to the countries governed via democracy, and some level up on that. So what I believe is we delegate peacemaking, but at this part, it might be that we get that back, or inclusion, and then it's peace by equality comes like that, and a new human right being that. I just want to I just really want really bright minds in the world could focus on that much more, and find ways of like, hey, it's a small step for me and big step for humanity. That should be an experience that everybody should be able to experience by just doing the minimal thing. And as people of most conflicted countries acknowledge peace for each other, then I want them be rewarded most. But I don't know, like, hey, I kept things quite raw, and it's gonna be much more simpler in the website and how things articulated. But I want the best for the world. That's why I'm looking for really people that really can give that. It cannot be it cannot, I mean, that's the thing. That's its success is all about people, and I'm wondering like how much. But there are also ethical parts. I just wanna say that and leave that to you. That because that's what I want here is, hey, intentions come or precedes impressions in general, like how things generally work. But for that, I just want that inclusion of like almost 600-700 million kids before age 5 is some assumed as already expressed peace, and actually those haven't born yet. But I will not go there.
Thank
But
you,
I
Streamer
just
D.
don't want that part be questioning its legitimacy. But hey, make it stronger, because people are looking to numbers. But I'm not so sure about it. But inside me, I'm so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see.
Thank
Thanks
you for sharing
the
it.
opportunity. Yo.
Thank you, Streamer D. See you very soon. Farewell. All right. Next, we have Edwin. Edwin, for a couple minutes, please share anything you'd like.
Test. Can you hear me?
Sounds great.
All right, we're good to go. I'm going to share my screen as I give a brief description of the Alchemist Club Studios, okay?
Excellent.
All right, here we go. So what you're looking at here is our website, okay? alchemistclubstudios.com. So in a brief description, the Alchemist Club Studios is an educational platform that is designed to immerse learners in developing deep understandings of STEM concepts, and that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Also, ideas and fundamental principles by using a physical approach to computing and education. One of the main goals of the Alchemist Club Studios is addressing the crisis of minorities underrepresented in the STEM field. I will show you here some pictures. This is the Alchemist Club in action at a fair in the New York State. This is the children that go to the actual club in the New York Board of Education system. And this is one of the projects that they worked on. They built this hybrid model with IoT sensors, and they were kind of checking the measurements of the soil and being, I like to call them citizen scientists. Let me see, I can also, if you can see on our website, you will also see a lot of the projects that we've done, like the Google AIY project, which is AI do it yourself. I will share a link with this. So once I create the team, so everyone can kind of get familiar with the website. We also have developed an innovative learning platform to help students develop the a working understanding of bleeding edge learning technologies such as virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. You're going to be able to see all that in the videos that we have put in the website. And our first initiative focuses on using the Google Artificial Intelligence Yourself project. It's a voice and a vision kit to help learners understand machine learning, artificial intelligence, programming, deep learning, and the Internet of Things by constructing learning artifacts that are used to assess STEM content mastery, critical thinking skills, and academic self-efficiency. And one of the main goals of the club is to take advantage of Google Classroom educational learning platform, as well as Microsoft learning platforms, and as well as Discord, to develop professional development portals for educators to learn how to construct these projects like the Google AI Do-It-Yourself, and to take it back to their classroom learning environments and enact on their curriculum. We also focus on educational outreach using a global perspective. Since every educator has access to Google Classroom, we have opened the learning portal so all educators all over the planet have access to how to enact this curriculum in their classrooms. So the Alchemist Club Studios also developed an accompanying education toolkit, which allows K to 12 students to learn basic as well as advanced STEM concepts and share their learning artifact using the student-centered Google Classroom platform. Even if a school lacks the technological instruction resources, they can still participate in the project via the student learning portal on Google Classroom. And this approach to teaching and learning is designed to prepare students for the digital world that is already here. The program is currently enacted in the New York City Board of Education system. It's a hands-on inquiry-based approach used to help learners to develop robust understanding of advanced STEM concepts, as I just mentioned, machine learning, deep learning, Internet of Things, and so on and so forth. And they have developed this working understanding by actually writing computer programs in Python, by learning how to use Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, and all these cloud platforms, and create their own code, their own voice assistants, conversational AI using a physical computing approach to understanding natural language processing. That's one of the projects that we've done, one of the initiatives. We definitely have a lot more runway and a lot more path to explore. And I can show you real quick.
Sure, just one more minute. One more minute is great.
Of course. This is our Discord where this is the portal that we have open for everyone if you want to get involved in programming languages, blockchain, Web3, machine learning, edgeware computing, robotics, data analytics, cloud computing, you name it. We will most likely be helping you find your way in this vast pool of knowledge. And just so you have an idea, this is the actual classroom, or I guess lab, in the New York City Board of Education. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll be opening a team in Complexity. If you guys want to find out more about it, want to join us, want to be an ally, everybody's welcomed. Thank you.
Edwin, Alchemist 6, thank you for joining Complexity Weekend and this presentation.
It was a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Farewell. All right, excellent. Next, we're going to be hearing from Brad and from Michael. So if we could get Brad onto the stage, and then Michael can prepare and be on deck. All right, do you want me to go down and tell Brad? All right, Brad, you are on the live stream. Please take a couple minutes and share what you'd like to share.
All right. Yeah, I hadn't really intended to do a team until this morning, but I was really intrigued by the catechism discussion yesterday. It was really kind of mind blowing. I mean, you guys did so much great work, and I'm curious about whether going through the catechism creation process, like we have a new project and we need to just answer all these questions. How often that needs to be done with large numbers of people. And that was kind of my focus. I I've had recent experience with kind of rapid alignment tools that are basically just, polls, but where the friction is reduced so that people can see the results while it's happening, and people can add new candidates, and people can vote up and down. So you can say, like, what are our principles? And everybody can just throw in a word that's the principles they want to be included, and other people are just kind of up, sort of like Reddit, but just in real time. And I thought, and plus we have a structure that's called a decision tree, which is you can chain decisions together. So like you could have a package, which is your facilitator's catechism, and that's like 5 linked decisions, and each one of those could be one of these alignment polls where the whole community, however big it is, could actually be voting up the best verbalization or the best writing of the situation. Anyway, so that's the idea. We actually did a proof of concept with the Emerge gathering in Austin, where we did a bunch of questions. One of them was what are we calling what is emerging, right? And people could submit any word they wanted, and superorganism won. Actually, it was like holo movement and regenaissance and all these great neat names. But anyway, superorganism was the winner. So that's the idea.
Amazing.
Yeah,
are you looking to get involved, or how can they get in touch?
Well, I mean, I think maybe Daniel, I'll just have some dialogue with you about whether it's useful or not. I'll show you the kind of tools I'm thinking about, and then we can see if something's worthwhile.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking this last minute affordance to step up and share such an exciting direction.
Yeah, thanks.
So, welcome, Michael. Perfectly timed. Feel free to go for it. Share anything you would like for the next few minutes.
Hello, I'm just walking in. Are you asking me or Brad?
You are on the live stream, and it is all yours, Michael.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I just wanted to, while I was waiting, because I was kind of misaligned with what was going on where and when, I filled out a team seed, and this is what and why. So the why is I've been working in a variety of different communities similar to this one, self-organized team online. And there's been a success in the kind of peer knowledge sharing, and then less success in the moving out of discussion and into venturing. And so I've been working for some time now on attending to what is the process of coalescing from a collegial discussion into folks that want to work together on a venture, and what is the process that they need to go through in order to move from a me as a venture to a we as a venture. And so that's what this team sprout or seed was all about. It's like some of these ideas are very much around the process of going from me to we, and working through for a self-interested team. What are the things that we care about? What are the learning edges of what we as a group have, and what is something that we wish to go on a learning journey together that creates an impact in the world? So it's still very much open, but it's structured in a way that's fairly disciplined, and pulling not only from learning methods and from the foremost focus is about emotional intelligence. So there's a fair amount of pulling from positive psychology and social sciences, but it's still kind of like framing a conversation, and what will happen in the conversation is yet to be uncovered. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell, as best I can describe. Literally, I was not going to do this, and I've seen it in enough places that I'm like, okay, this community here is smart, active, engaged, and fertile ground for kind of this co-venturing. So let's just jump off the cliff and start flapping away.
Mike, I've got one question, which is with our monthly heartbeats that we do in this community, how might we interface kind of this new team that you submitted and just support what you're planning to do?
Well, if one of the things that came up for me over the course of the weekend, I know Daniel from his work in active inference, and that for me has been an important one of the sciences feeding how collective intelligence might emerge. And I've been working for some time in the evidence of social transformation, and I brought up a paper over the weekend that was about something that was produced a month ago now. By the UN's Research Institute and some world thought leaders around a new class of indicators, transformational thresholds for social change, and so doing a learning sprint. In the active inference world, you could say that intelligence has a sensing side, a sense-making side, and then a responding side, and so the sensing. We can sense through evidence, we can sense through our organs, we can sense through a variety of, and it could very well be that it's like, okay, there's these new ways of sensing and then making sense of what is being sensed. And that a little focused learning sprint around this new exciting data and about how to work with it. How do different groups interpret it? Because in some ways, this stuff has been evolved for thought leaders of the world's leading institutions. And it's like, well, is it useful for somebody doing work at a community level? And so how do we extend its utility beyond the thought leaders to practice leaders? And your help in both holding it up in the spotlight and saying, okay, let's take this from the blueprint into action, and see who shows up and how they show up is deeply, deeply appreciated. That's a long answer, but I hope it hit the mark.
Thank you, Michael.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Wow. All right. So, we are next going to go, and if you want to stay on the live stream, Michael and Streamer D, you can still be here, or you can just step down. It's all good. So next, we're going to hear from two CW committees. We're going to hear from .teams committee, and then we're going to hear from .DAO. So I'm just going to go first and quickly with .teams. .teams is a committee, which means that we are a CW team. We're also a team that's learning and applying complexity. And what we're learning and applying complexity about is about the team's formation process in general, and specifically how it becomes implemented at Complexity Weekend, Heartbeats, and Weekend cohorts. So we have a really rich coda that's been developed by many participants, including the invaluable contributions by Jessica and others who have shown up for our meetings and contributed so much in the time between. And if you want to get involved with .teams or any committee, email complexityweekend@gmail.com. If you want to learn by doing, if you're interested or curious about teams, if you feel like you have some insights or sense making or affordances that you might be able to bring and improve our team's process, any aspect of it, then please get involved. And just in closing, I wanted to highlight a vision that we've had for .teams, which is seeing the committee as developing kind of like a continuous delivery service that gets iterated and versioned upon through the years, through deep time. And so we think of different services that we could provide for our community of practice at CW, and also services that could be provided for the broader niche and network. And then different services we will iterate on and develop so that they can be more functional and more accessible, more powerful time after time. So just a few of those services which we imagine .teams might one day be able to be like the one-stop shop for include accruing feedback from stakeholders, being matched with facilitators and guides, finding a team for those who want to join a team, finding new participants for those who have started a team, doing facilitated team Jamboard sessions, helping create catechisms or whatever they're called in the future, and alignment and consensus, trainings around peer facilitation, as well as educational materials and courses for other stakeholders, modifying Wikipedia pages so that they interface better with Teams and with Complexity Weekend, coordinating this amazing and fun and chaotic closing live stream presentation, helping with async contribution and asynchronous facilitation, as for global teams, asynchronous contributions are sometimes the only mode, and assisting in various other ways. And we always have discussions. We add more and more services. We iterate on what we're doing. So this has been a message from the .teams committee, and we hope that you get involved. We don't have a regular meeting time for the next few weeks or so. We're going to be digesting a lot from this September weekend, but if you email us, then for sure we'll include you in what time we do select for a regular meeting time, and then we have a great time in .teams. That's all. Thank you.
Nice. I can chat about .dao just briefly. I don't think it'll be very long. And maybe the format that would be fun is me just sharing like a vision, because it's definitely stuff that we're not immediately working on. And then maybe Carolina or Daniel, if you have questions, or Srimati, if you have questions, challenge it a little bit, because it is meant to be something that we really all have to spend a lot of time thinking about before we implement, and that is governance. So, we are a global community practice, and the vision is to eventually have active participants be the ones who are governing this organization, who are managing the events, who are making executive decisions on behalf of the community. And there's lots of ways to do that. And an immediate way in which we are going to instantiate soon with the .legal committee is incorporating and actually aiming to become a 501c3 nonprofit. And so that is its own governance structure, and is one that we believe is a good fit for this organization, and will allow us to be able to fundraise in terms of tax deductible donations and all this great stuff. But we need to figure out, how to get the voice of active participants in the governance structure of that entity, and in the future, what forms it might take in terms of, the new kind of Web3 affordances that are coming online, and how you might be able to, say, as an example, drop an NFT in participants' wallets for if they join a team or participate actively in the weekend. And if you've, participated in 3 of the last 4, then that might gate you into opening the door to governance, where you've experienced enough in the most recent historical window to guide the next iteration and step of the organization. And how the mechanics of how to do that are things we definitely need to iron out. One recent thought this weekend that participants had informed me of was new tooling around browser-based crypto wallets, and maybe making it easier than we thought was possible at this time to just have your CW username unlock a wallet that's created for you to hold your NFTs that show you participated, or even governance tokens potentially at some point, as we learn those affordances and model them with Block Science and other associates, and come to an understanding as to the best solution we can deploy, so that we can guide the ship collectively and ultimately end up with a global community practice that can operate in deep time and stays relevant, and keeps all the elements of the culture that we all love and enjoy, and scales them and maintains them or grows them over time. So that's kind of the ultimate vision. Carolina or Daniel, there's a million questions. What's maybe one question of how would this ever happen?
Carolina, if you want to go first, please.
Yeah, one thing that, well, in essence, in a DAO ends up being, well, encoded set of rules. And one of the kind of challenges I've seen thrown at them is that they take away the sort of human relational element of a community, that there is a possibility for that to be diminished through a DAO. And I'll be honest, I don't have enough knowledge about this, which is why I'm wondering if you've had any discussions around this, and if there's anything that you're doing to think about avoiding something like that.
Definitely. A conversation that keeps coming up at this early stage is the human activity of managing an organization Do you want to shrink that layer down and have more automated processes that once you decide to set up an election and the choices in the election, that those processes just take over without human intervention? There's no counting the ballots or things that could be an issue there. Or the other side, do you expand that human involvement? Because ultimately, humans with checks and balances on each other's behavior is maybe the best way to govern. So it's right now the answer is either way or somewhere in the middle, right? So we're absolutely no real understanding yet, but hopefully we're getting closer every weekend. Daniel?
Yep, I think just in the interest of getting all the teams time, we'll continue, but that's a very important area. So people who are curious about Web 3, 4, 5, and beyond, perhaps get in touch, because we're going to approach it from a complexity perspective. We have amazing system modelers and people with insight in a lot of other areas, so it should be like really a learning experience for everybody. And it goes without saying, if you've listened this far, that it's a great way to contribute. All right, so we have a few teams left. If there's anyone else who wants to say anything at all live, please come up to converse with Bouncer Alexandra down there. Otherwise, we're going to do a few readings and then a pre-recorded video, and then we'll go to the after CW and then the after party. Okay, so several teams have requested that their team seed forms be read live. So I'm going to do that. All right. The first team that we're going to be reading live is Team Regeneration. And the primary contact here is Killian Woods, who is a facilitator. Their topics and focus are how to use regeneration to reach climate goals. The next directions for that team are to explore diffusing knowledge on complexity to regenerate the world. The team is open to new members, which is awesome, so thank you for noting that. There are a few skills that they're looking for people who have, especially, and that's communication, education, climate science, and outreach. If you get in contact with Killian Woods, that's the best way to be involved with this team at this point. And so if you can't find Killian's contact information, do let us know. There are several people in the team, Karine and Eric. How is the team integrating complexity into their approach? The team is integrating people on the climate emergency. And what kinds of impacts is the team looking to have? They would like to impact the governments to make efficient policies to tackle climate change and biodiversity loss. So if that's interesting to you, then Killian Woods, facilitator, is the key person to get in touch with. Awesome. I'm going to read a second team that also requested that they would be read. Actually, that was Michael's team. So I believe we can continue on because the project was mentioned by the team seeder. There are many other teams that did not complete a form or did not explicitly mention that they wanted to be read. So I won't, just out of respect on this public live stream, mention those teams.
Daniel, I want to check if narrating dynamical aspects is one that wanted to be read, because I think I see it in notes.
Yeah, if they want it to be, it just, that team did not mention any details or fill out that form. So I just don't want to overstep. Yeah. All right. So there are 2 teams left, 1 recording and 1 the team that is not a catechism, aka Cat Speedrun 2.0, which is kind of a fun little reference for those who like the history of teams. This is going to be a team that's going to be stewarded by a whole host of people, but centered around Complexity Weekend. The topic and focus for the team is interrogating mysteries, knowing our multi-scale selves through questions. The team is open to new members. The skills for this project and team are curiosity, love of learning, sensitivity, bravery, idea generation, and more. And there are 5 next directions for this team. 1, conscious language and process around emotionally aware emergent team development. 2, modular catechisms and novel formats. 3, computational, e.g. artificial intelligence influences on or with teams. 4, tabletop role-playing catechisms, 5 catechisms as digital journeys, games, or interactive stories. And there was a whole host of people involved in this project. It arose from a complex discussion in the weekend, and the CW usernames of those who were in that discussion were RJ Corday, Dentropy, Doxology, Sasha, Karine H., Brian Vaughn, Carolina CC, Dr. Proton, Haptivist, Taika Metza, and Sabine Cologne. Yes, Sean.
I just had a fun idea just based on point number 3, where we were, after the question session, we were really just talking to a lot of chatbots and learning, what it's like to converse and be influenced by these agents that you can construct. And how fun would it be for the Catechism mascot to be the face of a Catechism asking bot to our teams, so that it can, be a little city cat, take the subway to its favorite spot in the city, come across some teams in complexity, and ask some really great questions to really make sure the teams, understand their assumptions.
Oh, this is awesome. It makes me think about you're having a mission-centered discussion, and then the cat asks you about avenues of approach, or you're getting really technical with a lot of different approaches, and then the cat is like, hey, who's going to be influenced by these kinds of decisions? For people who like programming AI cats, a catbot, I'm sure that you'll find a lot of directions with this team. All right, well, I'm going to next play the video of the team Ecotone Frogs. So just give me 1 second to prepare this video. Can you just give any thought for I just need 1 minute to prepare this.
Yeah, Carolina, I think just, again, from the organizer perspective, what was your take on the team formation process, kind of seeing behind the scenes a little more, like how it happens? Yeah, well, what's your feelings or thoughts, or maybe even how it could be better?
I think I missed this process a little bit. But I'm wondering maybe if a way to improve it a little bit would be to include some other alternative to Keybase as a direction, just for people to a more widely used form of communication, and suggest people use that just as if they're wondering if they maybe sometimes having too much openness can feel a little a little bit of misdirection. People get a little bit lost. But I think a Teams fair is a great idea. I think in previous weekends, I don't remember seeing one. And this is definitely something where you can just gain visibility of everything that's there. Just having the team, each team seed have its own page, I think was also a great idea, because before there was a table, but just being able to edit your own page and keep improving on it on the weekend in this way, I think that was a really good idea. And it's always interesting as just a final thought on seeing how this process gets iterated on over several weekends, just going to the organizer discussions and just seeing how this process has been evolving over time, all the onboarding teams, all of it is really fun to see.
And thank you so much for stepping up, and any participant or facilitator, it's a core value in this community to step up and learn in new spheres, and even if it's not becoming a formal facilitator for an event, but just stepping up in a moment to ask a voice to contribute to discussion who's quiet, or maybe is not feeling like they can speak up. Like, you could be an organizer in the moment too, right? You can notice something about the space that maybe isn't working as well as it could, and notify the event team, or if you can't have the affordances, take it upon yourself to fix it, or socially spread awareness of it. So there's formal and informal, and all ways of stepping up are just like really valued and celebrated in this community.
Awesome. I'm going to next play the Ecotone Frogs video. Sean and Carolina, I do not think that you will hear this video, so just be aware of that, but I'll let you know when it ends. Okay, so here we see Michael, Michaela, and Sabine, and let's hear from them.
Hello, Michaela. You two are launching this great group, Ecotone Frogs, and this is the introduction of what is meant and what the opportunity is for folks that might join. So, Sabine, can you tell us what are ecotones and why should people care?
So, ecotone is a transition zone between two landscapes. Mm-hmm. It's a place where the two meet. Species, some species actually thrive in ecotones. They have the ability to move from one to another. But also, ecotones are one of the most stressful and the most stimulating environments, because in ecotones we have the opportunities of both landscapes and the tensions of both landscapes. So you have to be daring when you are in a stress zone like this. And we want to explore, and I'm answering the second question already. Mm-hmm. So we want to explore ecotones because it's a space for us to go on an adventure, to venture out there and discover what can emerge from it.
So Michaela, when you extended the invitation for folks to venture through looking at ecotones, what was it that you were hoping might emerge? And 6 months from now, what are you hoping might be the fruit of this co-learning together?
So the idea is to explore ecotones from all angles possible or that interest any members of our team. Everybody's welcome to come with their questions and takes on it, whether it be between within ourselves and outside, between our communities, between disciplines and political boundaries. See where the tensions arise and where opportunities are to build bridges instead of walls, and find commonality. And the idea is to tend to this thought of ecotone for 6 months until the next complexity weekend, biannual cohort, and to come and report to you what we have explored together.
Excellent. So studying the space of in-between and seeing what arises in these spaces in between. How should people get involved? How should they sign up?
So maybe on the technical aspect, go to our Coda page, Ecotone Frogs, register, put down your email. We will contact you through that means in the beginning. And maybe, Sabine, you can have an inspiring visualization of how we want to do this by jumping into the pond.
Yeah. So frogs, I guess we did not explain that one. Ecotone frogs, because frogs are actually species that thrive in ecotones on the land and in the water. We envision this ecotone frog like a pond where all frogs get to sing their song and also sing the song together. It's a place of understanding, and we'd like you to join us.
Thank you. So it's an invitation to a place of understanding. Sounds very exciting. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing all of you on the journey.
All right. Bravo, Team Ecotone Frogs. It was a fun video, and I wish you the best on your amphibious journeys. All right, well, we are converging to the end. That is largely it for the teams. I love how we had this team Jamboard prepared. We thought, oh, it'll be 9. No, wait, it'll be 12. No, wait, it's like 15. So things are never stopping in their evolution here.
And that's not even the teams that are private or, just the relationships and collaborations that might continue and spawn teams later. So it's always fun to how little information we have.
Yep. Just on special request, I want to add one follow-up note from Expressions of Peace and Streamer D. They wrote, as an emerging right to introduce peace by equality, being equally significant on acknowledging and sealing a world peace treaty, we'd like to focus on perspective, concepts, notions, and tools that be using expressions and acknowledgments of peace to use this right, so we'd build an observable accumulation of global will and intentions empowering states to make peace. Thank you, Streamer D, for sharing these notes. All right, well, now we are after the teams section This will be the last bit. Oh, sorry, this will be the last bit of the stream. Getting triple OBS vision here. So, what is going to happen next? Well, one request that we are going to email you all about, but we sincerely hope that you can come through and help us in this way, is to go into the part after the weekends and please complete the feedback form. Every question on the feedback form is optional. So if you think, oh, it's a long form, I just want to add something random at the end, that's awesome. But please, completing this form is how we hear from our community. Even if you didn't join Gather one time, it's incredibly important for us to understand what would have increased your participation and all these things. There's also some other ways that you can stay in touch and involved after the weekend. Let's look at those right now very quickly. So first, Teams Beyond Complexity Weekend. We just talked a lot about teams and we heard from a bunch of amazing teams. Some of them were formed before the weekend. Others were formed like literally during a session. The level of commitment you bring to your teams, it's all up to you and your team. It's all good as long as it's communicated and consensual. Complexity Weekend has an annual calendar of events and a rhythm. So we encourage that no matter how the team plays out, please come back, get involved with the community because you never know what you're going to find. And we will continue to steward and scaffold these weekends and heartbeats so that your team can have visibility, so that you can always be bringing in new people and thus your team can thrive. Teams are really encouraged to set up a regular time to stay connected. And we talked about that a little more in the middle live stream. What are some of the most immediate ways that you can stay involved in CW? Well, the October 2022 Heartbeat is only about a month away. So if you know somebody and you thought, oh, they just were a little bit late to register for the weekend and I think they would have really liked it, please, please, please invite them to join for the October Heartbeat. And then they'll be included that way. So it's going to be on October 29th. 20 to 24 UTC and October 30th at 12 to 16 UTC. If you want to join, that's awesome. If you want to facilitate, let us know. Then we have a few asks. And if you're listening along this late, please help us directly or indirectly in some way. One thing that would be really helpful would be if we could have diverse and participatory organizers and facilitators who want to step up for these final 3 heartbeats of 2022 and play a bigger role in 2023. Even if you don't know about organizing or facilitating and you just want to try it out or you want to learn more about it, we really encourage people who are active and can commit even 1 to a few hours once or every week to participate this way because we really do need more organizers. So if you're curious about organizing, hopefully this has spoken to you because we want to co-organize with you and we want to work with you. We want to integrate your insights into how we can make it better and reach out to different communities. Organizers coordinate across a lot of different committees, but we have a great time doing it. Carolina knows, we laugh, we meme, and we actually help other people participate, which is the best reward. Sean?
I think one big goal of Complexity Weekend is to have participants and facilitators and organizers with properties that are as flat as possible, meaning from every time zone, from every perspective, from every background. And really the only way to get that level of diversity, which is really, I think, one of the main core values of our community, one of the big values people get by coming and engaging with the community, is by people stepping up and being the representative of their perspective, of their time zone, of all these different, things that influence our way of thinking. So we really just need everyone to step up, and that is what allows us. Yeah, I can't say it in any other way. It's really, really important.
Complexity Weekend's a little different than a lot of other organizations, even though all organizations can be perhaps viewed as complex systems. We take that extremely seriously, and we merge that with our values and our beliefs about participation. So if you're curious to be involved and you see an opportunity, or if you don't see an opportunity, but you do want to be involved, things only happen when individuals decide to be involved. Whether that's showing up for a session, or whether you want to co-organize, or you want to connect us with a friend who might want to co-organize. These are all essential for the sustainability of Complexity Weekend. So again, hope that people can find an opportunity to participate in a way that's really organic for them. And then lastly, if you want to provide financial support, that would be welcome. The most important ways that you can support are to show up through word of mouth and through stepping up to facilitate and co-organize. Some people may also want to provide a fiat gift. And so for those people, here's a PayPal address that Sean can probably post in the YouTube live chat, paypal.me/complexityweekend. These donations are pretty much vital. We have limited costs, but we do want to be building towards financial sustainability and integrating all these kinds of things that could help the community be even more effective, like CW website, where we have an integrated chat platform and all these kinds of technological developments. This is only going to be possible if we have modes of being financially sustainable, which, just to be totally honest, we don't. So if you even see a way to support directly or indirectly financially, we never want to have a financial barrier to participation. So that means if you got something out of this weekend, then just, visualize what that value was worth to you, even if this is in a few weeks, and then come back and support us so that other people can have that value too. That's actually it. So these are the final thoughts. Whoever would like to go first, they will have the privilege of not speaking last.
Carolina, please.
Yeah, no, I just want to say to anyone that might be watching as a participant and a little bit scared to step up as a facilitator or as an organizer, I've now experienced both. They're all different. And I think just go for it. As Michaela said in the first live stream, it is a great community to be involved in and to experience in different ways. I just really encourage anyone to just get more involved and experience different sides of Complexity Weekend, joining a team, co-facilitating a session, if you're scared to do it alone, or stepping up to one of the committees or organizing. Just a great community. I've always had great fun here.
Thank you, Carolina. Sean, penultimates.
I'm just really appreciative to everyone who came and showed up. I mean, I just think the interactions at Complexity Weekend are always so valuable, and I always come away with a lot more information and exposure to a lot more perspectives. Short message is just thank you, everyone, participants, facilitators, organizers, supporters, associates, like everyone in the ecosystem. This is always my favorite moment because this is when everyone's work kind of lines up and produces this kind of energy. And then we get to enjoy the upcoming heartbeats and the build up to the next weekend. So yeah, just thank you, everyone. And I'm excited to see everyone in the after party.
The after party is going to be in the CW atrium, which is just our public space where people can drop in. It's where the heartbeats are. Please head over there if you want to connect for kind of parting words and exchange contact information. Email us at complexityweekend@gmail.com if there's something that we can help with or you want to be more involved. Otherwise, I just want to echo Sean's sentiment, and of course Carolina's as well. Just thanks everybody who made it happen. Participation means we make it happen. So if you're listening this far too, this is Deep Cuts, and it's been a great CW September 2022. So peace out, everybody. See you in the atrium.
Bye. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.